Clear. All right, so our next speaker is Ben Brew. Ben, I don't have many good things to say about Ben. Joe Brew was busy, so we took...
He's pretty busy.
He's pretty busy, man. So we took the younger, less accomplished brother. So Ben actually was a DSSG fellow in 2015, and him and Jane worked together on projects with the EPA, or yes, I think it was the EPA. Yeah, it was one of the EPAs. But since then, Ben has actually struck out on his own and taken all these great ideas that he got from DSSG and started a data consulting firm to rake it in. So he's going to give us some perspectives of projects he's done working with social good type organizations, and some of the, maybe not exactly the full technical solutions, but I think he'll give a good overview about building data solutions that are appropriate to the needs of the project partner rather than going in and deep learning the heck out of everything. So Ben, take it away.
All right, let me see. Technology is, you guys see it?
Yeah. Look at how great Joe looks.
Wow, look how great my wife looks, actually. So yes.
Just to be clear, Joe is not your wife, right?
They play the same role. So yes, I am here to talk about the working with the client and curating the tool or whatever you build for them to their needs and their expertise and their expectation. And as Harim said, I was part of DSSG in 2015. My brother did it in 2014. That's me, I'm Ben. That's my brother Joe. That's my wife Bing. And we all decided afterwards, based on Joe and I's experience at DSSG, that we wanted to, kind of create our own micro little DSSG, just with a lot less resources and a lot less talent, but still the will to try to find these projects, and quickly discovered that there's a really high demand for them. We've been doing this for about 2.5 years and really haven't put that much effort into finding clients. And they usually, because we also do other part-time jobs, but they tend to just, fall in our lap. And yeah, they're not the most exciting, sexiest machine learning models, but if you like coding, they're fun and they're useful, and they, there's just a big demand for them. So let's see. Yeah, so I like to think of Data Brew and the work we do as like blue-collar data science, like working-class data science. We don't do any of the fancy services. I saw some study recently, or it was just a chart of breaking down different positions and how they spend their time on data science. And you have like the typical research scientist spending a lot of time on modeling and statistics. But what the Data Brewer does, and we don't call ourselves data brewers, but maybe we should, I kind of like that, is that we basically spend most of our time on just cleaning data, organizing it, and then visualizing it either in a dashboard or in a report. And then other, there's a lot of communicating with the client and trying to figure out, different, even sometimes they have a set of deliverables they want, but then we can kind of give them insight that they want different deliverables or additional deliverables. And so it all depends on the client. And then you also have like the Harims of the world that just spend 100% of their time on other, defined by her. Like that chart, I made that myself. So yeah, our typical client.
What did you use to do that, Ben? No,
yeah, Ben, it's amazing what you can do in Paint now.
Yeah, it took surprisingly long to create that data frame. I'll share the code. So the typical client we have, similar to DSSG in some ways, is short to medium term contracts of like government institutions or academic institutions, where they may or may not have a data science person in-house, but that person is usually highest demand person in that company, so they don't have time to take on little individual projects for departments. But we do, when we keep that person in mind when we hand off our deliverables, because that's the person that will likely take over the code and the GitHub repository and work with the README. So they have these limited resources, and there's just a lot of variance in what they expect and what expertise there is. So some people come to us with a very detailed guide for what they want with no divergence from that. Other people say, we want to do this. Can you help us figure out what we want? And then depending on those things, that part of a lot of the process is just trying to figure out what type of client it is. And then based on that, we curate some sort of plan for the deliverable. So yeah, I mean, the typical process deciding what they want is are we doing consulting, just telling them, oh, we think, this isn't a big enough sample size, or this graph that you already have isn't very good, and we would visualize it like this, or are we actually offering them some sort of product that we deliver to them and they take over and maintain, and even maybe in some cases keep us on retainer and work on those as they update the data. And are we joining an existing project? A lot of the projects are projects they've already done in Excel or Tableau, and now they want to translate them to Python or Shiny. Or are we managing a new one? And yeah, like I said, is deliverable, fixed and detailed, or are we helping them decide? So I just wanted to go through some really quick examples of some of the projects we've done recently that kind of encompass the different types of projects we do. So this is quite the chart, or quite the slide. So one thing we're doing is with the World Bank is one of our main clients, and because within the World Bank, the International Finance Corporation, they're associated with the World Health Organization, but there's tons of sub-departments that are kind of acting alone. They're kind of connected, and they have a lot of funding and these projects that are just sitting there, and in these cases, they're not asking them really to consult, but to rather not to consult, but rather to take what they have and make them essentially. So what they had was a bunch of spreadsheets. This was the Health and Equity Finance Insurance Program at the World Bank. They have a bunch of spreadsheets on macroeconomic data, and they had at one point put it in Tableau, and they shared it with us and the spreadsheets. And I don't know much about Tableau. I haven't used it that much. I know it's not open source, but the way they implemented it was really clunky, and it broke the visual. And plus, there was limited ways they could edit the charts and less detail they could apply to it. So we came in and we scrapped the Tableau and we used R Shiny. And not only, everybody knows my obsession with R Shiny, but it's even gotten better. So R Shiny now, it's not that there's these package called Golem where we can create a dashboard and make an actual R package out of it. And so when we give it to them, it's the namespace, everything is all in there. There's functions we've written for them. So even if they have a basic programmer, they can open up R with directions, apply functions, and run the app. And then they can hopefully edit it and do it later on. So that's one of the examples of giving an actual product. So they can actually install a R package called from our GitHub repository for them with their own plot theme and everything. So another example similar to this of taking over, or this is taking over a project that's finished, but they just got to a dead end. And this isn't visualization, but this is just and this is very typical that we do, just really messy data. This was the University of Maryland Medical School they collected data with the World Health Organization, with DHS, and on verbal autopsy data, and it was in different languages, different formats, and they just needed us to come in, look at all the data, and create some sort of program, which we called Babel, that would take a data set, and you could also give an input of what type of format you wanted in and what language you wanted in. So then they could eventually gather all this data into something intelligible and do their analysis and publish their papers on verbal autopsy data. So and that was really simple. It was just, we built a package, gave it to them, and now they can run and build functions so they can look at their plots and write papers. And then finally, one that is more, has to do with, there's definitely a social good aspect to this one, and also less consulting, and this is more project managing. So sometimes you get a client that really does, they know they want to do data, they know they have funding for data or surveys or whatever, but they just don't know what to do with it. And seeing my wife used to work at the YWCA, and she quit about a couple of years ago, but they reached out to her because they knew that she has this business. So we want to do a survey in Toronto, Ontario on gun violence in certain neighborhoods. And they sent the list of questions, and then they sent follow-up questions about what other questions do you think we asked? How many samples do we need to show some sort of significance? And so, it wasn't the most technical consulting, but we came in and we helped them curate questions and ideas and different ways of visualizing the data. And then what they wanted was just a long list of plots. And we knew that this is one of those situations where we know better, and what they probably really want is a way to visualize the data without scrolling through a 500-page PDF. So we could build them an app, and they could look at the data and then create whatever newsletter or research they want out of that. So these are just 3 quick examples of the type of stuff we've been doing. And yeah, I just want to emphasize again, it's not, rarely have we done statistical modeling. it's a lot of data visualization and cleaning, but there's just so much demand for it out there. And the organizations that need it the most are like, that want it the most are the ones that need it the most and don't have the, necessarily the resources to do it on their own. So it's been, yeah, it's been a good experience, and I'm open to any questions you guys might have. Like I said, it's all over the place, so there's no one model for this type of work, but I can at least try. So
Thanks, Ben. I think one question that people are probably curious about is, you mentioned about building the solution that, you know, the partner needs, or in some cases where you decide that what they're asking for is not what they need. So in that, how do you include the user, the end user, in your design process? How are you getting their feedback or input to make sure that what you build will be useful and also stable?
Yeah, so I mean, there's not like a really fancy answer to that. We had one situation where the client, it was York University, wanted a dashboard or visualization, some sort of website visualization of a bunch of survey data. And we thought like, oh, they'll probably just want like a dashboard. So we said like, oh, this will be really good. But at that point, not taking into account that like some of the inputs to the dashboard were grouped by this variable and get the mean of this. And to a lot of people, they don't really know what that means. So we immediately went back and looked at that dashboard, and through a couple of meetings quickly found out like they don't actually want a dashboard. They want one of like those websites where there's just like a big header, like 33% of children in Ontario go without, you know, the right amount of calcium in their diet or something. And then a big pop-up that shows a map. And then like nothing, like they don't want to actually look at every detail of the summary statistics. They want some sort of, so it's back and forth with that. And then like sending them the existing details from us or from other people is like, do you want a more technical dashboard, or do you want just something that is catchy and visualizes the data in a fun way?
So then kind of to tack on to that, what's the range in technical skill that your users have? I know you've done like our trainings and things for some of your users, but what's the range of technical skill that you've worked with?
Yeah, so for the typical project with the World Bank, they always have somebody that is a data scientist, like, or at least a PhD in some sort of quantitative thing, so they know the language and they have some code written, and usually they get somebody to start some dashboard and then send it to us. So with them, you know, that's when we think, okay, we build a package, we have a really good repository so their programmer can pick it up. But a lot of times it's just, that's the most important part, is finding it, like trying to identify exactly what their skill level is. And most people, like, they don't, I mean, they're not interested in maintaining a GitHub repository. Yeah. And a lot of times those people also don't want to, like, their product is just an end product. And if they need us in the future, they can rehire us or keep us on retainer. But yeah, I mean, it's just identifying that they're not capable of maintaining the code, and then, you know, then it gets a little bit more difficult getting their feedback on what they want. But we just try. Then it's just more of a back and forth process trying to figure it out.
Right, and then kind of just to add on to that, how do you get clients like the World Bank to come to your little mom and pop shop?
Right. Yeah. No, we started just like, there was like a few the our jobs website, we'd scrape every day and send an email to ourselves that there was a new one. And like with the World Bank, we just got our foot in with one project a few years ago. And this is usually how it happens when like we get our foot in and we do, you know, a couple weeks of work almost for free just to impress them. And then once we did that, like once we got our foot in and just do one good project, then they pass you around internally. But I mean, yeah, and that's kind of the point I was making. We don't put that much effort into clients. It's just like we found, and once we got past that critical threshold of enough clients, like people started contacting us. And like, and even just locally, just like at the university, look at what people, PhDs or institutes are looking for, look at their short-term contracts, especially now with COVID, everybody works remotely, and there's so many short-term jobs for that. You can take it on as an individual or a group. So yeah, just like that, basically.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Raid said, you know, that if this goes well, he'll tell you which of you is his favorite brew brother. So, I don't know if you'll find out today or in a confidential email after this call.
All right, I'm looking forward to it.
And I wanted to say, kind of just echo, this is more of a comment than a question, but echo something that Ben said about the needs of a lot of organizations being data visualization and dashboarding, and especially with organizations, social good organizations that don't have a lot of technical skills or devote a lot of energy there because they're more focused on grassroots change. That is a huge part of their ask. And kind of as we've been going through the scoping process for Solve for Good, this comes up a lot, that the request is more about data visualization, data analysis, or dashboarding. And so if you have those kinds of skills as a volunteer and you're interested in looking at projects, and any number of projects right now that are open for volunteers, I'll post one into the chat right now, which is with an organization working on a vulnerability index. And this is kind of one of the needs that they have as well. So just to kind of emphasize that, what you said a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to say this because anytime dashboards are useless, visualizations are useless, right? As an end goal. No organization ever needs a dashboard or a visualization. The organization needs to do something, and they are asking for the dashboard as a way to do that thing. So if somebody's asking you to build a dashboard, I wouldn't say don't build it, but before you build it, ask them what they want to do with it. Mock it up, do it on a whiteboard, do it on a piece of paper, sketch it out, and say, here's a dashboard you want. Now, what are you going to do with it? And that will help you figure out what to actually build and how to make that dashboard actionable. And even putting in on the dashboard actions. What are the actions you're going to do so that they don't, because often a dashboard is a way to satisfy your boss who's asking for a report. And that's useful because it saves you time and headache and just sending, but that's not, that doesn't have impact on anyone. So before you build a dashboard, figure out what the organization wants to do with the dashboard eventually, and then bring it back to, okay, now we can build this. And it may be a list of things. It may be in a spreadsheet that's a dashboard that's just giving you a list of things to act on. It may be alerts that you're getting. So again, to Ben's and Andrew's point of organizations that are coming to you have a need, but they may not know how to ask for what to do to fill that need. They might ask you, we need a dashboard. And what they don't understand is they actually need a way to figure out how to take this data and make it actionable. And they need a system in the middle that helps them do that. So make sure you have that conversation before you start building